Leaders without education create bad habits. Follow me. Let's go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Victory Leaders Lounge. I'm here with Alundas Havens, who's a veteran as well, just like me, but I'm not going to introduce him because he can do that for himself. And we're going to talk about mindset and personal development today. Without further ado, Alundas, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to my audience?
Yes, sir. JJ, thank you. It's immense honor. I had you on my podcast. You knocked it out the park, brother, and I absolutely loved you. So it's an honor to return the favor. I'll make it short, sweet, simple about me, but I'm a Marine Corps vet. So was fortunate with an opportunity. So in my case, left from home because I had a crazy childhood growing up. Parents were alcoholics, raised a stepdad in the mix, and just bad belief systems of, hey, this is who we are. This is what we can be, limiting. And then was involved around just dumb shit people, people that were involved in gangs, doing dumb shit. When I was on boot leave, my stepdad thought my mom was having an affair. So almost shot my wrestling coach, missed about a centimeter from his face. And then when I was at the schoolhouse, my cousin got stabbed 9 times. So it was just repeated reminders of me of, hey, you need to process trauma, but also understand that, hey, everything that we're doing is for a reason. So it's getting these signs from God. Had 6 friends pass away along that journey. 2 other people that I was really close to, my grandfather, friend's mom that played an influential part in my life. And then had an addiction to alcohol where I'll drink a gallon of whiskey because my level was when I was 19. I was actually telling you about it. I was supposed to move to Hawaii because my unit went to Hawaii when I came back from Kuwait. And I became my own boss at 19 in the Marine Corps, and then was on a meritorious sergeant board, got injured, tore all the cartilage in my right knee, jacked it up. So I battled the last 2 years of my career getting taken off a board because I no longer was fit for full duty, which made me a bad Marine, which didn't make any sense. And then got out to the civilian sector, and that's where I focused more on the personal development mindset. Because again, I had the leadership opportunities at a young age, but when I came to the civilian sector, I didn't have the degree. So all of a sudden wasn't a leader and had to go to these entry-level positions, which led me to building my own business to where now I do that. I coach the individuals on first getting started doing the healing work, and then second, starting that podcast and talking about that journey of everything that they went through.
That's amazing, my friend. I tell you what, you know, it everyone has everyone goes through troubles. We can't minimize how severe or how not severe people's trauma is when it comes to them, but being able to help people through that and get yourself through it to get to that point, that's an amazing thing. So, I appreciate what you do, and I deal with leadership, so that's all encompassing to me. If you're able to disrupt in your own life and then move forward and help people get better in their own, that makes you a leader. That makes
What
you a leader.
100%,
So
100%, brother.
personal development, and leadership. Let's go, and mindset. So you're a mindset coach. Go ahead and, in your opinion, as far as mindset is concerned, what does that mean to you, and what does that mean to your customers usually?
So, what's funny is I actually had a call right before this, brother. And that's exactly what someone said is we talk about mindset. What are you thinking? It's that foundation, brother. It's how you're showing up to every single day and why we do it. One of the things that we were saying before was we had technical difficulties. And I'm like, easy day. Again, it's the way that we're presenting the problem. And then we're saying the way that we're going to solve it. In our case, we have military backgrounds. We understand that people act like chickens with their head cut off all the time and they're going crazy. And that's what we talked about on our podcast episode of on my show, was, hey, we have to set up that day. It's building that foundation. It's that mind, body, soul connection. It's making sure that every day that we're focused on putting that great energy out, we're the best fathers, parents we can be. We've done that inner work. We got that workout in so we can show up for the family. I dealt with various injuries when I was in the Marine Corps. So it definitely played a portion into me going up to 235 pounds, losing 55 pounds, and then packing on some muscle after that because I was like, hey, I'm not happy where I'm at. Again, that's what we all go through. We all go through that adversity that's going to get us deterred off our path. It's just our plan of attack of how are we going to go back to where we want in life and then show up as that.
I completely agree. I do a little exercise with a lot of my clients called reframing when it comes time for them to have to really make a mind gosh, I can't even talk today. A mindset shift. But you know, when it comes to reframing, it's taking that negative and turning it into a positive, taking the I can't and turning it into an I can, and taking that it's too hard and turning it into I will try, because people fail at everything. That's how they get good at stuff. Right? But you know, if you don't try and give yourself an opportunity to, I don't use, like to use the word fail. I like to use the word opportunity. So if you don't give yourself an opportunity to learn along the way, then you're never going to be able to get better. So I love that. And obviously, as far as personal development is concerned, if you can teach people those skills, you know, it's almost like teaching somebody to fish. They not only can do that for themselves, but they can overcome any problem, and they can teach people to do the same thing, because it's not a difficult process. It's just a journey that everybody has to go through. So that's not easy work, man. That's but it's important.
What what's funny is that I was talking about to they're actually the client that I landed this morning. Uh Another stickler that was a tough guy. And his thing was, I just want to land more clients. And it was just like, bro, that's all you're gonna say. So I'm asking him questions. I just want to land more clients. I just want to land more clients. I said, all right, man, I'm just gonna shoot you straight. I was like, I have a community, we're building entrepreneurs, we're talking about physical fitness, we're talking about health, getting in the best shape of our lives. Nutrition's on point, which allows us to get more clients in business, and we're optimizing our profiles. Does this sound like something you're interested in? He said, yeah, got him on the phone this morning. Oh, I'm looking to get more clients. He's talking about he had enough clients. And I'm like, hey, imagine if you're showing up as the best version of yourself, how much more clients would you get from there? And he goes, dude, really? And I go, dude, everything I'm talking about is because I've rebuilt my marriage. My wife was going to leave me. I show up as a better dad for my family. I dealt with the trauma because, again, I was abused as a child and seen all this wrong shit. So I'm like, I'm not saying anything that I don't do. I'm telling you what works and what is proven, because I changed my life around because I stopped doing all the bullshit. And I went back to the foundation, that mindset shift of, hey, what are we doing that's going to line us to where we want to be? And whole entire life changed even before we got on this podcast, brother. Someone reached out to me this morning that I barely started talking to. Hey, I'd love for you to come out to Hawaii, come speak to my MMA gym. I have some kids in there that aren't from privileged families, can't afford gym memberships, and I'd really love for you to talk to them because I know you can help them. And things like that wouldn't happen if I didn't stay consistent and show who I am every single day.
Yeah, and you know, it's important when you come from an underprivileged environment yourself to and you rose above it, to give back. I was just talking to a friend of mine who, you know, he's a dark-skinned male. You know, I it's hard for me to go out and do some of those things because a lot of the environments that I grew up in, I looked around and, you know, the typical thing is to see somebody of color who's struggling. Well, I love that you're out there doing that, because it takes somebody who looks like you, that has struggled like you are struggling, to tell you that you can turn yourself around, because otherwise you're just kind of lost in your environment where everybody else is telling you that you can never rise above that. And that environment does tell you that. Everyone surrounding you says that this is the life. If you're not part of it, you know, then you're just going to be broke working a 9 to 5. Well, good Lord, that's not true. If you tell yourself that, you will be that. But if you tell yourself you're something else, you'll become that, because your body goes where your mind takes it. So thank you for doing that. And you know, you and I
Be
are gonna
well.
have to talk more after this anyway, because that just means I got to put you in my back pocket, my friend.
My man, let's do it. You're amazing people. So it was an honor just conversing with you, number one. But two, now that we created that relationship, and that's really what it was for me was, hey, how do I help more people? Because again, I felt of the same things, even when I was in the military. Like I told you, one of my cousins got stabbed 9 times. And it was just like, I got out the environment, I got around the bullshit. And then what did I do? I attracted the same people because I didn't evolve. And that's why I said like the personal development, especially like I've heard people and some of the clients I get, oh, I invested this much into this guy and he didn't help me turn my business around. I'm like, you understand that any business advice that you're paying for is all personal development. It's all about you
Yes.
creating that man, evolving so you can sell something and be that. You just don't learn how to be a better businessman. You create the man that's a better businessman. So you have the confidence when you walk in the room to be like, hey, this is who I am. And that's why they lean on you. And I'm like, it's a difference because most people won't do that. I worked for a veteran company and I had my job on the line. And I did it intentionally because it was a shady sales company. They were all about, hey, if you don't hit quota, you're getting fired. And I just sat there in front of them and I was just like, fuck it, fire me then. And they just looked at me and they're like, what? And I'm like, nah, if you ever really have a problem with me, fire me. And I was like, because I'm not going to sit here and work for somebody that I do not respect or someone who doesn't respect their salespeople, especially for a veteran based company, but we don't give a fuck about veterans. It doesn't make any sense. And they just looked at me and they're like, oh, you use profanity. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to keep it 100% with you guys. I'm going to be clear, concise about what I'm doing and why I'm a good leader. Because again, I've dealt with the bad things in the military where they don't care about you. They care about the mission getting done. And then you're second. And that was something me and you talked about, it's like, regardless, mission's going to get done, but we need to make sure that we're the best to our people. And if we're not the best to our people, we're not even being good human beings at all.
You're right. And just like we talked about on your podcast, that doesn't mean that you look at everybody as a version of you or what a version of you want them to be. You kind of have to meet people where they are and develop them into the best version of themselves because everyone brings something different to the table. But if they're not up to snuff, then you have to help them identify what that means instead of just I hate companies that do that. They don't put any time into people. Now there are exceptions, of course, where somebody gets hired onto a company that they just they were completely wrong for the role. However, for the most part, people can be developed into that role, and especially if they have a lot of leadership skills, bringing them in there, any job can be taught. But if you have drive, you have determination, you have the ability to learn, and you're willing to work with other people, which means, by the way, coachable, then there's nothing that you can't do. And I completely agree. And, that's why, and I'm sure you do the same thing for your clients as I do for my one on one leadership coaching clients. You have to be able to identify if those people are willing to help themselves because paying for a coach, some people feel like that's like the easy button or something. Well, there's no such thing as an easy button. If you want the results, you got to put in the reps. If you're not putting in the reps, you're not going to get the results. It's kind of it's a circle. You're going to be chasing your tail if you're not willing to do the work.
100%, and that's what a lot of it is people think that it's that get rich easy, let's do this or that. I mean, I worked with the guy that was when I learned the podcast game, 7-figure entrepreneur. I didn't make anything from working with him, but I learned about the experience. I learned about failing. I learned about all the things that are going to make me successful on my own. And that's what's funny is when I started my own business, it was like, well, I've already been in this situation before. Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to lie to people telling them that this or that because that's what I was taught, or fake it till you make it mentality, where it's like, why can't you just create the man that makes it? And then I start creating it, and then I start sharing everything. And then I'm like, hey, man, I didn't want to talk about this, and I left this off my brand. You know what? My wife was really going to leave me. I was down in the dumps. I haven't been drinking a year and a half. I really want to start drinking. And I just started talking on that. And then everybody was like, wait a minute, you're talking about something that most people won't go. And then all of a
Right.
sudden, my life started changing. My wife came back. I got my kids again. As we're talking, I have my little ones running in the back. I got a 2-year-old and then a almost 11-month-old. So I take care of my kids while I run the business. And honestly, that's been more fulfilling to me in life is I get to show up every single day as the best version of myself, take care of my kids and run business. Like, what else do I got to complain about? And I used to
Right.
complain about taking care of my kids because I couldn't be on the phone all day long. And it's like, again, it goes to that value. You know what I mean? You can charge more, you can do whatever, you can work in different capacities, you can schedule it for yourself. For me, I didn't get clear with it until I started taking care of these kids. And then I realized, hey, I was really not present when I was working the 60 to 80 hours and thinking that I was making that money that was changing our life.
No. And you made a comment early on there, and I wanted to touch on it. Fake it to make it. What an interesting concept. There's some value to it though. And I don't know if you've thought of it this
100%.
way, but if you reframe that fake it to make it into something like practice makes perfect. Well, guess what? You might not always feel like getting up in the morning and doing a workout, or maybe get up in the morning and doing everything you need to do to get ready for work. But if you take that fake, whatever you want to call it, momentum, and you push yourself to do it anyway, after you make it a habit, you start to enjoy it. And after you start to enjoy it, then you can't imagine your mornings without doing it. And so I think that there's value to the fake it to make it mentality, because whatever it takes to take that first step forward, you should do. If that means that you have to go out there and show that false motivation, well, go show that false motivation. Do it. But whatever it takes to do that, if doing that thing is going to get you to where you need to be, then you have to. And if you don't, then you're never going to see that light at the end of the tunnel.
Again, you hit it with the reframe, reframing the way that we say it, subconsciously changing that belief. That's exactly what it is. That's why I said for me, it was creating the man, because then I can understand that, hey, every day I show up as this, every day I'm transparent, every day I show up as regardless. These are my core values, my belief systems. I mean, I was 19 years old in staff meetings, having E6s, E7s, gunnery sergeants like
Oh my
play fuck
God.
games with me. And it wasn't even like it was like, hey, the commanding officer's like, Havens, why isn't these people getting weigh-ins in? And I'm like, well, because they don't show up. And then all I hear is, I didn't get an email. So I'm like, all right, send a read receipt, print it off the read receipts. Actually, Staff Sergeant, I actually have in my inbox that you deleted my email of weigh-ins. So now, commanding officer, this is why this isn't met, because this person didn't do what he needed to do. And then I got this guy looking at me all pissed off because I just threw him under the bus. And it's like, well, before they had no problem doing that to me. So again, I had to
No.
reframe it for myself instead of faking it and acting like, oh, this is what it is. And I was getting myself in a lot of trouble. I had to just be transparent. And it's the same thing with the coaching program. It's like, I was talking to the client this morning and I'm like, he's all, do you ever feel like you need a drink? I'm like, yeah, there is times where I feel overwhelmed, but again, it's what are you going to do that's going to break you out of that frequency? What's going to get you back on track? Well, I know for me, diet's a big component, getting moving. I have PTSD and OCD and whatever, so if I don't set my clothes out the night before, I flip out, so it's like always keeping yourself to that routine of what works
Yep.
for you. Because again, you're going to figure out what works and what doesn't. And I know for me, I was literally talking to my wife this morning about it. She was talking about like going around family. And I'm like, it irritates me sometimes because they don't work out. And to me, I cannot not work out. So it's like, I wake up even earlier. I work out when we're around family, and then I'm able to be present. That way I'm not like sitting there the whole day fidgeting around, being like, I knew I should have did this. I didn't do this. I didn't do client work this morning. Now I'm behind. Instead, it's like, hey, I got all these things done. I get to be present. I get to just shut the phone off. I don't even have to worry about that anymore because everything else is going to fall in line.
Yeah. And, that's a whole other way of being intentional, right? Is making sure that people have issues with time management, but making sure you're scheduling. This is the time that I'm working out. This is the time that I'm working. This is the time that well, my kids are getting ready to go for a nap. So I got to block that on my schedule to make sure I'm intentional about that. And oh, by the way, my wife doesn't get home until 6 or 7 at night. So my kids get home from school at a certain time. So I got to block out time on my schedule to cook. Otherwise, my kids can never find a doggone meal when there's 500 pounds of food in the house. I never understood that, but it's a thing. It's just
That
making,
that
you got to make sure you're being intentional.
that's where I'm at right now. Is literally when we hop off this call, everybody's getting made breakfast. Before they had their bottles, they had their fruit. Now they're gonna have breakfast after this call, and it's like, hey, reframed again. We're talking about reframing. Most people say affirmations. I get to. I don't say that anymore. I say I do, because I know for me, I need to be in an action taking state. And if I say I get to, then I'm more in, hey, I'm appreciative, but I don't take action. For me, I realize action is everything. So that's just what I do. Is I do. My wife tells me to do something. I do act like a better husband. I do become a better husband, and I just change and shift and reframe what we're talking about.
That's interesting too. I've always been a Christian in one capacity or another, whether I was young and Catholic, or maybe I decided to be what I am now and I'm like a Christian non-denominational. But I now find it hard to believe that a Christian can have this victim mentality. People understand that, life doesn't happen to you. Life actually happens for you. God's not going to give you anything that you can't handle as a person. And by the way, there's also always a lesson to be learned there. Whether it's, well, the where people get stuck in the victim mentality, I think, is when he's teaching you humility. But because that's like, I will smack you down sort of thing. But it's important to understand that if everything in our life happens for us, then reframing is an important part of your professional development. I don't always talk about religion because it doesn't resonate with everybody. That's okay. Those people aren't my people. But when you think about it that way, it really changes the dynamic of how you operate your entire life, because everything is an opportunity.
Man, I love that so much. And that was something I had to get clear with. Like I said, I had friends that died, and I really thought about that. And then the other day, I interviewed a gentleman, and he talked about that. It's always someone
I
else.
saw
It's
that.
never going to be you. If it's you, you're not going to wake up. And I was like, man, that was powerful. Because even with that, I reframed it and I thought about it, but it was true. Like it's always you. You're always going to figure it out. God is always putting it in your way for yourself. For me, honestly, that's what made me fall into it. December 31st, 2022, my wife was going to leave me. Got on my knees. I said, God, could you just give me a sign that you're real? Because I really don't believe right now. I really want to be just an atheist and just go about my business to be ignorant. And one of my buddies the next day on New Year's messages me, hey, brother, I was praying and something told me to reach out to you. You good? And I never talked to him ever about any relationship problems I had, anything that was going on with me. We had a conversation. He's like, oh, here's some family services that you can do. I didn't even know his wife was an officer in the army. He's like, yeah, my wife's a warrant officer, blah, blah, blah. Again, I didn't have this. I had him as a client. I was helping him for a podcast, but we never talked like that. We became greater friends. And it was funny because there I go. I was like, God, you're right. Like I was in my own way and I didn't do these things. So that's where I went to the praying, the meditating, getting into that space. That's why I say working out's huge for me because I have all these injuries. I feel terrible every single day, throwing up in the mornings. My joints are aching. Doctors are like, you can take these antidepressants, you can take these meds, you're going to feel better. They didn't make me feel better. They made me gain more weight. So
Yes.
that's where I had to get clear with me. And in my case, faith was definitely a huge component that strengthened my life.
When you think of every day as being a gift, we can get off the religious thing here in just a minute, but I have to say one more thing. When you think of every day as a gift, just remember this. Our lives are on loan to us. When it's time to come home, he's going to take you and you're gone. So
Yep.
every day he wakes you up, you have opportunities to do something, not just for yourself, but for other people. Every minute that you're alive, what you choose to do with that time determines what's going to be given back to you, what kind of grace that you get. I don't care if you're working out for you or whatever, but you got to find a way to serve. Otherwise, you're not going to receive that grace. You can serve your family, you can serve your friends, you can serve your community, but you're not going to receive that grace until you give something back.
Oh, what's funny is one of my buddies told me exactly that, and then he's like, we're God in human form. God has sent us here for a reason. So if He can't experience life, we're experiencing it for Him. It's going to be hard for a reason. That's the reason
Yeah.
why you go through all this adversity, not because we want to play the victim, not because we want to say whatever. It's because God needs you to be that person to go through life, so you can talk about it and help other people on that level. And once my
Oh,
buddy
you're
told me
so
that, I was like, okay.
right. Well, I even I served 18 years in the army and I got out and I had this defeatist mentality for the longest time. And it was because I left my family. Well, I should say my family pushed me out, right? Because I got medically boarded. I ended up medically retired, 100% VA disability. For some reason, all of that told me that I wasn't good enough to be a soldier anymore, but also I'm 100% disabled. So I'm still losing the weight, but I got fat. I got lazy. I had this defeatist mentality, and I didn't think I could move myself forward. I feel bad for my brother's son, but in 2020, in the summer, my brother, at the age of 35, when I was almost 40, he passed. And it really opened my eyes. I lived in Virginia at the time, and I came back home to Iowa to visit, and he passed when I was here. And everybody else, they grieved. nobody else here took action and started making things happen to bring people together for his service, to make sure that he was taken care of in the end, and going through his cremation process and getting everything squared away so that nobody else would have to worry about that. But I was here, and immediately I stepped up without even realizing it, took care of it, and when I got back home to Virginia, I woke up. I was like, you know what? I was put on earth for a reason. Why did I serve 35 plus months downrange? And
Yep.
I'm still alive at almost 40 years old. But my brother, who never left the state of Iowa, passed at 35. Well, God brought him back home because he served his time. But I'm still here. So what am I going to do with it? It was a very powerful thing for me, man. And I woke up and I turned into this dynamic person that I always had been. I was a warrant officer in the military. I went all the way up to E7 before I transitioned. And, I didn't get that way because I said nothing is possible. I am not something. I did that because I said, you know what? That's what I want. And I can do that. So I'm going to do it. And when you have that defeatist mentality, it takes all those opportunities away from you because all that stuff is made up and it's in your head. Nobody else believes it but you. Some people might believe that
Mm.
that life is that way, but it's not. You can rise above any negative thought if you just believe that there's a positive side to it. Anyway,
Man, that's powerful, brother.
yeah, sorry. I know this is a for you interview, but I wanted to share that because we were talking about religious stuff, and that was my no shit aha moment right there in my life after I retired from the military.
I resonate with that as well. Like I said, I've jacked my whole body up. I need double knee replacement, 5 to 10 years. Dislocated both shoulders 5 times. I threw out my back like 2021. I was crawling around my house for 2 days. So
Oof.
bad back, joints, osteoarthritis in my joints. So I'm throwing up every morning, migraines all day long. So I was using cannabis for a while and I got up to 235 pounds, just being high out of my mind because that was the only thing besides the antidepressants that can get me moving. The antidepressants did, but I started wanting to off myself even more and started having panic attacks. So I stopped that. And that's where I really went into like the spirituality component of meditation, which led me into Jesus again. And it was funny because throughout that whole process, that's where I started finding myself, and it was like, I kept saying, oh, I can't do this, or, oh, my body's broken. Because for me, I was my own boss at 19 years old. So I was an E4, E6 position. I was on a meritorious sergeant board. I was going to pick up. Then they're like, you're broken. You're a piece of shit Marine because you're injured. Then all of a sudden I was like having my head down because every day I was told that. Got a boss my third year that she micromanaged because she wasn't a good leader. She never knew how to do her job. So she would micromanage me and belittle me every single day, every chance I got. When I got knee surgery, had my Marines turn on me. And then it comes out, eventually they understand that was her game. And that's how she was able to manipulate power, by getting through the military. So anyway, for me, it was the same thing. And then my friend's mom died last year. And she was one of the first people that was ever like, hey, I see potential in you. My whole life, my family was kind of like that with me is, hey, you're different than us, because I just always seen all the dumb shit we were doing. Everybody be drunk. My dad beating on my mom, dad beating on me, cheating on his girlfriends, all this foul shit. And it was funny because my friend's mom died and it just really hit me. And it's like, I'm going to be sitting here crying. Also, my mom's side of the family, they came from Mexico where they came illegally, had nothing. And I want to be sitting here crying about my issues, about what's going on in my life, about all the adversity that I went through, instead of just making it happen. And that's eventually what it was for me, is like, I always figured out a way. And when it went down to that same thing, it was, hey, we're either going to sit here. And even now, getting in the best shape of my life again, even though I have all these injuries, it takes time. It
A
sucks.
lot of
You don't
time.
want to get up. I'm throwing up every single morning. This morning I had that. Like I was throwing up, not feeling well. I woke my daughter up and she's been sick for the past month. So she gets up and she's like, Dad, could we cuddle? I'm like, all right. So I go cuddle with the daughter. And then I get up and I feel a little bit better. And I'm like, hey, maybe that's what I got to do, is just be more present within the moment. And it was all the little things that started to click.
Isn't that amazing? I want to put a plug on what you said, and then I'll let you do some closing comments to my audience over here because we're almost at 30 minutes. But I want to put a message out there to veterans, right? Whether you're still serving, you're almost getting out, or you just transitioned. It's a powerful message. I went through the same thing, even because I went through a med board late in my career when I was really, really close to retirement, like full retirement. So I'm medically retired now, and most of my income is from VA disability. But thank God I got that. But your time is not done. They may they may take you from being hero to zero in their eyes when you're getting ready to transition, but that doesn't mean you're a different person. That high performer, that awesome soldier, Marine, airman, seaman, whatever you were, that is still you. Just because they put you in a different bucket doesn't mean you are in a different bucket. So when you transition, don't forget that. It's unfortunate that the military process works that way, but don't let that define you. Don't let that define what your future is going to look like, because if you do, you're throwing a lot of these skills and abilities that you gained and learned throughout your time in military service down the toilet, and that's that's a waste of talent. That's a waste of you. So don't do that. Um, anyway, I'll go into my closing for this in a second, but Alundas, do you have anything that you would like to share with my audience as a closing comment?
The last thing I'll say for me is your life is yours. You decide where you want to go. My wife actually is on a med board right now, getting out the Navy. She had a hemorrhage in the back of her brain. So she had 3 brain surgeries last year. And that shit crushed me. See, my wife just so drugged up, she couldn't even speak. I literally, outside her 3rd surgery, I left that night, went to the hospital. I talked to the charge nurse, and it was funny because I called the hospital and I'm like, hey, just let you know I'm coming over here. I would like to talk to the charge nurse so you guys don't kick me out, call PMO on me. But I was like, I'm going to go see my wife, and hey, this is what it's going to be. And I was such in a bad mental space where I did 450 burpees outside of the hospital after seeing my wife, because I just needed to show up for myself before I could talk to family, because they were just bombarding me. And it was powerful because within that moment, I just realized that like life is precious. Everything we want in life is ours. And I just started moving differently. So my wife was like, hey, thank you for being there. Every day she was in the hospital, I was there. Now that she's on the board getting out, and the Navy's kind of treating her like shit because she wasn't able to fulfill her duties. She's after her 4 years. She wanted to be a lifer. It's been awesome. It's awesome because I'm seeing her step into a leader and her understand that life is short. And that was something we used to bump heads on. And it was funny because it's like everything you want in life is yours. You just have to do the work and understand the power behind it. For me, everything was always there. It's just I applied it to what I wanted. I wanted to party and drink. It led me to bad vices and bad things in life. But when I focus my energy on being the best that I can be, everything else corresponded to that. So that's the one thing I'll give y'all.
Mindset and personal development, ladies and gentlemen. Don't let anything get you down. If you have a goal, be intentional about setting that goal, put a timeline on it, and execute. And if you don't feel it, well, if you don't have the training or the education necessary to make that goal happen, just tackle it. Don't wait. Today is your day. Why is every day a gift? Because there's no time better than the present. Let's go. Anyway, this is the end of my podcast. However, this is also a live stream, so I'm going to say that if you see this, depending on the platform it's broadcasting to, make sure you like this video, subscribe if you're on YouTube, share it, repost it if you're on LinkedIn, but most importantly, keep the conversation going. Whether you share it or not, just put a comment below this video and keep the conversation going. Make sure that all the issues that you maybe had or something that worked for you is put out into the rest of the community. And that's all I have to say. You went off mute, so did you want to say something else too?
No, that
Okay.
was incredible, brother. Immense honor. Thank you again, my friend.
Indeed. If you stick around for a second, I want to talk to you about something. All right, everybody. This is JJ Hardy and Alundas here on Victory Leaders Lounge. Y'all have a good day.